Okay, so the second topic that we wanted to address was the rage against the war machine protest rally that took place, I believe, 2 days ago now on
Yep.
Sunday in Washington in front of the Lincoln Memorial. This is a protest that has brought about quite a bit of controversy on different parts of the left. Frankly, I think that the most controversy has arisen from people whose works I've followed for a while and who have the same positions, quite frankly, on these issues as the people that led the protests. A lot of these people have been speaking out against the U.S. proxy war against Russia and Ukraine. They speak against anti-China propaganda and defend China. So they speak in favor of Julian Assange. They speak against the U.S. empire. They speak against and in favor of the things that are represented by the 10 points that the Rage Against the War Machine protest sort of centered as its demands. So it was kind of weird because I had friends and people whose work I follow on both sides, and it was like you guys agree. I know you agree on the key issues. Why so much pettiness in terms of whether to support it or not? And I think we should tread lightly because I'm sure that we have a lot of friends that are on both sides, and I think that each side held their position because they felt that it was the right thing to do. And if we think that one side is wrong, our hope should be that with time that they would see that, and if similar things take place in the future, they change their mind. Or if we end up being our position ends up being wrong, then hopefully at one point we change our mind. But I want to preface it by saying that we're not gonna we don't want to dismiss the people that will be criticizing. We hope that they change their mind if it ends up being the case that we're correct. We think we're correct, but that's I think it's important to preface that because very often you give a critique and it
Mm.
gets very emotional and people are like, okay, that's these people are condemning me. Let's not work, and I think that's counterproductive.
Right. Yeah, I want to say that, like, I personally disagree with a whole bunch of people on a whole bunch of things. I will never I will never let it get in the way of revolution, of class struggle, of even friendships, right? I'm good friends with some family of my wife that we disagree on almost everything, but we still get together and have a good time. It's not an issue unless it's concrete and material and preventing something from happening, right? And so anyone that disagrees with us on that's fine. Disagree all you want. In fact, if you want to disagree, address what we're saying rather than, just trying to lump us in and pretend we think the exact same thing as, the Mises people of the Libertarian Party were at this rally. And my main criticism here is, where is your movement? Where is the left's anti-war movement? We are hurtling towards World War III right now, and that is terrifying. If these people want to be against war and they're coming from a libertarian position, that's fine. You know what I see it as? I see it as them losing the character of neoconservatism and gaining a more progressive character. And I am confident enough in Marxism, Leninism, and our message to know that when we present it to them and to the masses who may follow the organizations themselves, that we will win them over. We are correct, right? So I want to take a progressive thing and bring it forward to a whole nother level. Yeah, go ahead, Carlos. Sorry.
I don't think few things are easier to do than to show how war is driven by capitalist imperialism. If you have people that are already against war, they're a step away from being convinced into seeing that it's capitalism. None of us were born socialist, realizing that the wars that are in front of us are a result of monopoly capital, finance capital, and trying to expand its spheres of influence abroad or prevent other countries outside of the spheres of their spheres of influence from encroaching upon their own spheres of influence. None of us are born knowing this, right? Especially not in our society that it's heavily propagandized, and there's so many ideological layers that we have to progressively pull back. And it's if we really reflect on our lives, if you consider yourself a communist, you must come to the awareness that it's been a dialectical development of you getting to where you are. You're constantly overcoming, sublating your older self and becoming better. So if you can realize that that's what's taking place with yourself, why not see that as a genuine possibility for all these hosts of people that are already in a very, very, very progressive position by opposing the war, opposing NATO, being in favor of Julian Assange, hoping to end empire. I mean, just go down the list. I know there's cringy views and unfortunate views that some of them have on other things, but they're already on the money in those things. And look at people who call themselves socialists within, I don't know, DSA. Have they had as radical and as progressive and as according to the positions that Marxist Leninists should have on this war? Do they even have that on those very key issues concerning geopolitics and the struggle against imperialism and the struggle against the constant escalation towards nuclear Armageddon? They
Half
even
of,
don't have them. So why
half
is
of, half of them are calling this an inter-imperialist rivalry because they
Jesus
can't
Christ?
understand the anti-imperialist nature of modern Russia, and they dismiss everything that would actually lead them to learning this as Putin propaganda, or don't worry, hey, it's not the Soviet Union anymore, right? It's very vulgar and surface level. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I just had to say that.
But even in the more progressive organizations that are to use uh, it's not a dichotomy alike, but the left right dichotomy. People that are to the left of DSA that would consider themselves Marxist Leninist, communist. There's a good segment of them that want to hold on to a similar, neither Beijing nor Washington. They want to condemn the Russian special operations as an invasion that was immoral, illegal, and that should have never happened. And then they also want to contextualize it with the events of NATO's expansion eastward and the 2013 coup and the installment of fascists and the bombing of the people in the Donbass and the 14,000 dead and Angela Merkel and everyone coming out and saying that the real reason why they signed the Minsk Accords was so that they can buy time to militarize Ukraine. If you look at things in their context, which a lot of them do a very good job on, your conclusion cannot be blame both sides. Your conclusion has to be, look, these people were escalating to doing a genuine, stronger attack than anything they had done in the 8 years previous on the Donbass region, which is ethnically Russian, which has been, repressed by the Ukrainian government at least since 2014, but really since farther back. They've had their language banned. It's just completely racist and led by fascists. You have this condition, and you have the people in that region asking for 8 years for Russia to step in. You have the most progressive parties in that area, the Communist Party of Ukraine, the Communist Party of Donetsk, Lugansk, the Communist Party of the Russian Federation. You have these forces asking for the United Russia, for the leading party in Russia to step in, and they didn't do it for 8 fucking years, and then they do it in order to prevent a catastrophe. How do you know all that context and then say, oh, the invasion is condemnable, we have to condemn them, they're both to blame, both sides? Russia has been asking for peace from the start. The only side which has not wanted peace and has proliferated this massacre, which is treating Ukrainians as cannon fodder, is the West and the US specifically. So how do you know the whole context and then say, oh, it's both sides? And what's sad is that part of the communist movement in the US, people who I agree with on, 9 out of 10 things, they've taken that position. And then here you have some nitwits, libertarians and stuff, taking the right position
Right.
and having more radical demands than, the other protests that have been done against war.
How do you cede that ground in the war of positions to them? To the Libertarian Party, you're going to let them outflank you like that on the issue of a proxy war your ruling class is waging, right? How are you going to do that? You should be ashamed to call yourself a communist at that point. And by the way, you shouldn't. But here's an interesting angle that I was thinking of. One of the main things, and you see this not just with this, but with everything. I saw someone say that, Max Blumenthal, the founder of the Gray Zone Project, one of the best investigative journalist outlets in the entire country, was now a Nazi because he was in support of this, right? And so they act as if, one, they make a caricature of the libertarians and whoever else, the other weirdos that were there, right? Two, they then pretend that every idea of Max Blumenthal's is now shared with them. And three, they condemn the whole thing. And this is the brand ideology of modern late imperialist capitalism, right? This only exists in our era, and the purity fetish is one of the best ways of explaining it, right? Max Blumenthal is tainted. No matter what he's done in the past, every position he holds on everything else does not matter, because we disagree with some other positions that some of the other people there have said, right? This isn't about those positions. This isn't about X, Y, or Z. This isn't about a government regulation or whatever it is. This is about ending the proxy war with Russia. This is about attacking our ruling class, whether the Mises people are aware of that or not. That is precisely what they're doing. And if we can use them to attack our ruling class, hell yeah, I'm going to use them, right? Don't expect me to turn that down. I'm not going to. And when it comes to something else, I'm going to fight those people tooth and nail. Whatever is good for the class struggle, that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm not going to, mince around because they say bad things. I'm just not.
Absolutely. And, I couldn't see a clearer manifestation of the purity fetish. These are the same folks. And the importance of the purity fetish is that it gives you a concept to see this phenomenon comprehensively and not just see, but they don't want to approach, working class people who voted Trump because they're too impure. Okay, but they also reject these socialist states because they're too impure. Oh, but they also do this and those are not disconnected things. Those are all connected in a worldview, a Weltanschauung, a way that they view the world, which is anti-dialectical, and it's the way that I've been labeling and that we have been discussing as the purity fetish. And there isn't a clear manifestation of that in this. And you were talking about the guilty by association situation with Max Blumenthal, and he became impure.
Mm-hmm.
You go into that with other people that are not pure, and you get contaminated. Your purity gets desecrated. It might as well put the scarlet letter A on him. It's a puritanical ethic. It's just weird, and at its core, the worldview that it's grounding it. It's a reactionary worldview.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's a reactionary worldview, and
we're going to get people saying the same thing about us after this. They're going to be like, oh, you guys critique blah, blah, blah. And Jackson Hinkle was there. So you agree with everything Jackson Hinkle thinks on everything else. And no, I'm sure there is some overlap in what we think, but there's a lot of disagreement too. Does that matter? In what way does it matter? You know what I mean? And it reminds me a lot, and we were discussing this when we were setting up the stream, of the sort of ultra-left, new sort of wokest view of Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln did not go into the Civil War wanting to free the slaves politically, right? Who knows what he thought personally. I think he believed slavery was morally wrong, but whatever. They say, Lincoln didn't want to do that. He was racist. He was this and that. But what other force did emancipation, right? Was there a pure one? No, there wasn't. There's a reason the Soviet Union praised Lincoln. There's a reason our Communist Party used to carry banners with Lincoln's face in it into the streets. There's a reason they named our armed forces the Abraham Lincoln brigades fighting Spanish fascism. There's a reason the Soviet Union praised him up and down. There's a reason Mao wanted to put him into the Communist Party of China posthumously. This purity that they judge everything against, this pure ideal that only exists in their heads, that is divorced from the world around it that creates it. It's cuckoo bananas, you know? There's no other way to put it.
You and your bananas. But you have people saying that you have. I think there's a comment up here that you have imperialists like Tulsi Gabbard speaking, and obviously, there's a lot of people there that probably had horrible views about China. They
Definitely.
probably. I saw a tweet of one of the Mises people who was just saying the most absurd and ignorant shit about the
Racist shit.
Chinese spy
Yeah.
balloon, and also racist shit. But the question is does that prevent you from working towards peace in a way in which they're also there in an area that's very, very important? And I think, perhaps because we're both, going through Black Reconstruction, and because we have this event coming up that we'll plug in just a minute when we're done with the segment, um, the logic that they have wouldn't have led to anything as radical as what happened during the Second American Revolution, the Civil War, to happen. Because if they would have expected purity from a North that was, maybe less racist than the South, but not really.
Not
If
really.
they would have expected purity, they would have never had what Du Bois calls the general strike,
Right.
which was the reason why the war was won. You had black workers in the South, slaves, migrate to the North. They went up north and they fought in the ranks of the Northern Army, and they helped as workers, and they did a whole host of things. And that's why the Civil War was won. And they pressured a movement which objectively was not anti-slavery. They just wanted to prevent the expansion of the Southern Kingdom into the West and into the South. It wasn't an anti-slavery movement that the North had, but it turned into one because it was pressured by the black workers in the South. So if you're telling me that you have an anti-war rally that you're going to reject because they don't invite you and because there's questionable people in there, you would have never, with that logic, been able to do what those 4 million revolutionary workers in the South did, because they said, fuck it. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to lead the country. And they did the same thing. The same vanguard of black workers was the one that led the civil rights movement through the Communist Party, the Third American Revolution. The most progressive things that this country has done has been because black workers have said, I don't give a fuck if I'm wanted or not. I'm going there and I'm leading the movement and I'm doing what has to be done. So you're going to sit here and say, oh, they didn't invite us. We've been doing these anti-war protests that, just people in our organization show up to. They didn't invite us. I'm going to condemn it. No, go there and lead. Go there and lead. Be the leading voice of the protest, connected to the struggle of oppressed and marginalized communities, connected to capitalism, connected to empire. Go there and lead.
1000%. And
that's what Du Bois would have done. That's what King would have done. That's what all the best leaders of our past would have done and told you to do. Why aren't you doing that?
One absolute go there and lead should be the slogan. Go there and lead, right? The answer is in Marxism, Leninism. We have the answer. We have the way out. And all those people that show up or view it or support it based on, getting there through libertarianism or whatever else, Tulsi Gabbard, whoever, it doesn't matter. You go there and you present your case with the actual facts better. Guess what? You just strip them of their support and gain that support for us, right? You go there and lead. We could have done that. We could have easily, I don't want to get, and easily is a big word, but taking over, if you have the truth and you have the facts and you have the only way out of the crisis on your side, is a matter of actually doing it rather than, sitting around discussing whether or not the other people that want to do that same thing are good enough.
And guess what, man? If they do their protest in March, we'll support it as well.
Hell yeah. Hell
Because
yeah,
we
we will.
supported the previous one, the one that they
Right.
did, I think, last month. Get people mobilized, get them to see the fact that the difficulties that they face when they go to the supermarket and they can't afford shit, or they have to cut down how much food they eat because of the rising prices of the things that they need in order to subsist. Get them to see how that's connected to the US's proxy war against Russia, and how that's grounded on the capitalist system at a specific stage, which we call imperialism. Get them
Look,
to see that. And if you are going to do it on your own, I'll critique you not being there. But when you do it, I hope to show up. And, we hope to have people show up, and we'll promote it in the same way that we promoted the other one. Because you know what? If we're not right in doing this and you end up being right, we're not going to let our ego get in the way.
hell
If you end
no.
up being right, we'll tell you that you're right. And we'll say we're wrong, and hopefully, show us wrong. Show us that our positions are wrong. Give us the best fucking march that we've seen since the 2003 marches against Iraq. Give us that and give us more. If you could do it, give us that and give us more. But if you can't do it, man, try to align yourself with other forces that you agree on those areas with, but maybe not on other ones, and
Right.
pull from their audience. A lot of those people are working people that are just there because the YouTube algorithms took them to libertarians and to other right-wing nuts that have this Ukraine position correct for some reason or another, but that they have it correct. You know how many people have had access to Marxist ideas, genuine Marxist ideas? Very little. And if you're going to already go to a rally where you're in agreement, that's the rational kernel that you use to rearticulate them towards Marxism. That's what organizing is. You get ideas that are already in people's common sense and feelings, and you rearticulate them towards socialism. And you have a rally where the people showing up, a lot of them are working people, maybe some of them are not, but they already agree. The rational kernel is already there. And there's quite a few of them. There was 10 points that were quite radical. Rearticulate them towards socialism. And if you can't do it, fuck it. If you can't do it, fuck it. But there was so much potential that thing left unrealized. Had the existing progressive forces of the left done what in other ages, at least I think so, that's what reading history books lets me to believe, in other ages they would have done, and they would have led the movement, and it would have been a bigger protest. It would have had a maybe more ideologically coherent, although that's not what we should expect. Martin Luther King, in the development of the peace movement against the war in Vietnam, was purity his measure? Was he saying, no, this guy did something fucked up in his life, his character is condemnable, he shouldn't be here, and if he's here, I'm not going to be here? Was that the standard for the peace movement in the past, the one that succeeded?
No. What gave us the civil rights revolution, the social revolution? What gave us this? It was demanding the necessary things for society to continue on. That's what it was. It wasn't saying these people are good, these people are bad. It was not that. And here's the thing. They act as if, being at this place with these people is tainting them somehow. I can't work with them. Why is that working with them? Are you forming a new organization where you guys have to mix your ideas together? No, what it is that they are not confident in their own ideas and think it will be subsumed by this other force. And what that is not having Marxism. If you have Marxism, you are confident, believe me, because Marxism gives you a deeper view, right? It gives you a deeper view of society than anything else around, certainly than a libertarian. If you can't outmaneuver a libertarian in how to approach society, then you need to go back to school before you decide on any political movement at all in tactics. You need that first.
Absolutely. And we have someone here. I want to engage with one of the critics. I think this is a straw man of the principled left opposition. Well, what were the replies of the left? I saw three, right? One of them came from the Black Agenda Report, wonderful website. They do things that they publish things that I disagree with. They hold on to certain theories that I disagree with, like settler colonialism and all that. But they're very good on some other stuff, and I follow their website. We've republished their stuff in our institute quite a few times. And one of their things was that they were not invited as being a part of a movement like the Black Alliance for Peace, the Answer Coalition, other movements that have been active against war for the last 2 decades at the very least. And, we address that. You're not invited, show up and lead. Show up and lead. And you know what? It's fair. The people who organized the Rage Against the War Machine protests, they should have invited them.
Mm-hmm.
You shouldn't, if
Absolutely.
you're genuinely in favor of peace. And if I think that the People's Party one, those are ex-Bernie people. If they're on the left, they should have invited. If they're willing to have libertarians there, they should have invited the other people on the left that have been leading the anti-war movement, which hasn't really, for frank, it hasn't done much, but they have been leading protests. They should have invited them, and that's a fair critique. That's a fair critique. That shouldn't take away from the fact that you could go there and you could lead. You could go there and you could lead, and that's what other forces in the past have done. The other critique that I saw, there's questionable personalities there. There's people who have done messed up things that are condemnable. Okay, that's horrible. Fuck those people.
Yeah.
But so what? The movement is not just them. The movement is not, again, do you think MOK was like, okay, let's do a background check on each person that's here, and if we find something condemnable, one or two things, we're not doing it anymore. They either leave, or if they're here, I'm not going to stay here. Was that what MOK would have done? Really? No, of course not. And what was the other critique? I don't know. Those are the two main ones. I read all the articles that were critical of it. Those are really the two main ones. So
Yeah.
I think those are easily traced back to the purity fetish. You're expecting purity from something that's not going to be pure, that's going to be broad. And the paradox is this. People from these circles have been the ones trying to develop a popular front for a peace movement. So they're saying, we don't want ideological purity. We need a popular front like what King did. What? So it's a popular front with who? Who's acceptable? Well, it's just the liberals and the PMC and the academy. Those are the people that are okay because they're enlightened on these other issues.
If it feels like a fancy college campus, then it's fine.
Then it's acceptable. They might not agree about Marxism, but they're liberals and they're PMC and they're students, and that's acceptable. These other people, no. And I think that's a paradox. If you have the idea that in order to build a peace movement, you can't be that ideologically, rigid. You need to have people that have different ideas that come together for a fight for peace. That was a perfect example of that. And if you hold on to that idea and you didn't support that, it means that there's only a certain type of people that you want to do that with. And those are the people that are pure enough for you. It's the purity fact. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I actually do have a critique of it. And here's my critique. The attendance was it wasn't low.
This was the other one. The two white.
That's one that was. Yeah, but invite these groups, right? Or if you're there, show up and lead, right? Just show up, lead it, take the stage, take the spotlight from all of your political enemies. I'm not friendly with the Mises people. I would have no problem taking the stage and the spotlight and using it to subtly show why their answers are silly, right? And why we have the right ones. But here's my critique, is that the impact was rather low, especially for the huge names they had there. Tulsi Gabbard was there. Dennis Kucinich was there. I mean, there were big names. And by the way, I actually ran into Dennis Kucinich at a Thai restaurant a while ago. Super awesome. Anytime you see him, he remembered us. Anyway,
a Thai restaurant?
Yeah, and it's
like a fancy, like you have to wear a tie?
No, like Thailand. Like egg roll. Yeah.
I thought you meant like a
Siam Cafe, and it's one of the
best
places in Cleveland. Okay. But so there's something going on if there's only a couple thousand people there, right? And what I think it is they did not account enough for the purity fetish. They knew people would be organizing against them, right? And trying to prevent people from going to this rally through whatever means necessary. And I believe that there are people on both sides of this that's led to that. And what it's done is split people, which is what the ruling class wants. They want more division. They want every issue they can to be a wedge issue. So here's the thing. I don't care which side of this you fall down on, whether you were for this rally or against it. Don't let it get in the way of class struggle. Don't let it divide us, right? Come together afterwards. Like we were saying before this, criticize us if you think we're wrong about something, but criticize what we're actually saying, just like we would give you that respect, right? And so I think they didn't account for that. They didn't account for the bourgeois operators that could easily be doing that on their behalf, or just the general sort of tactical situation of ideological struggle in our era, right? By some of their big supporters, I've been attacked online, right? Because we're not a political institution. So why would we have, said one way or the other, whether we hold their view on X, Y, and Z, right? And they tried to set this up with me in a sort of one of those silly social media tricks, like, why hasn't Midwestern Marx done X, Y, and Z yet, to get us to do what they want? Anytime you do that to me, by the way, I'm not going to comply. No American working class person is ever going to do what you want them to while you're underhandedly trying to make them do it. Instead, just approach people honestly, man. Just do that. It's not hard to do.
Absolutely. Is there anything that you feel like we left off the table with this discussion?
No, I think it's pretty well covered, and it does tie really well into the last topic of the night, which
I
is
agree.
your.
I,
Oh yeah,
I
go ahead.
felt like I had something more to say about it, but it's not coming to me now. I was following, most of the coverage that I saw was from, our friends at RBN, specifically Sabby Sabs, and, a few other people. And I got to be honest, man, I was a little bit disappointed with the turnout. I was hoping that having it be that broad would invite more people. So I do think that the people who hosted it, they should rethink their strategy, because um, the popularity of the war in Ukraine just keeps going down and down and down. And there's a lot of sectors in society that 55% of them are like against the proxy war against Russia. So I feel like the turnout could have been a whole lot better, and the execution could have been better. So I would say, I don't know if they're listening, but for the people that coordinated the event, figure out how to make the ones in the future better. And I don't want to throw stones from a place I haven't tried to do one of these events before. So I may try and get nowhere near to what they did, but I think that with the popularity with the decline in popularity of this war, more could have been done, and maybe there could have been a better way to approach these other groups that ended up being critical from beforehand. I mean, from the first moment that there was a critique levied, I think that these groups should have been approached. And what we would have done, had we forgotten, I don't think we would have ever forgotten, but what we would have done was something along the lines of, you're right.
Yeah.
Do you want to come? Do you each of these groups? Do you want to give a speaker or two? Let's
It was
come
a
together. I
it
think
was
that
an
would be the
incredible
right response.
Yeah, it was an incredibly fair critique. Like, let's be real. It was. And so
But they
that's
still
the
should have been
future.
there. Right.
Right. I want to address one more thing. Our favorite mod here, Cobra Commander, says, you convinced me to change my thinking. I got to tell you, it's going to be hard to take in libertarians are more class conscious than libs, but I will try. I just want to address this real quick because we love you, Cobra Commander, but I don't want to say they're more class conscious. than libs, I want to say they're both not class conscious, right? But there is this myth that liberals are somehow closer to us, and they're not. We need to approach this from a class perspective. Liberals, especially in our era, are increasingly bloodthirsty and increasingly upper classes, right? That's just how it is. Where do you see the Ukraine flags usually? And it's all from the liberal sort of media apparatus. You see them in the suburbs. You see them in the gentrified areas of the city. You don't see them in the hood. You don't see them in the trailer park. None of that, right? So I just want to say, like, libertarianism, I think, is sort of a false consciousness in a way, not close enough, right? But the reason they're libertarians is because they see something broken. They've just been manipulated on what's broken and how to fix it. They aren't, and this goes into that whole left-right paradigm and viewing it from the Marxist materialist perspective rather than the dogmatic bourgeois one. The bourgeois one says this and that make you left, that and this make you right. We don't say that. We say it's the material progression of society, right? And so that's a way different way to view what is left and right. And therefore, it is the class forces that we see someone in the working class, even if they came through libertarian, gets it way easier.